Heinz is proud to partner The Urbanist on Monocle Radio. Heinz is a leading global real estate investment manager. Heinz owns and operates $93 billion of assets across property types and on behalf of a diverse group of institutional and private wealth clients. Heinz' ambition? Well, in the words of its chairman and CEO, Jeffrey Heinz, to be the best real estate investor, manager and partner in the world. Find out how Heinz is making that dream a reality. Head to heinz.com now. Heinz, a leader in real estate investing and management since 1957. Hello and welcome to The Urbanist, Monocle's programme all about the built environment. I'm your host, Andrew Tuck. Coming up.
Our job, and especially in creating a flourishing town, is meeting the needs of people. And digital connectivity is now not on the wish list, it's on the required list.
How can going digital help democracy? In this episode, we explore the ways in which the digital world can bring about more representative decision-making and successful outcomes in cities. We hear about a platform helping to ensure that all forms of citizen participation can be utilised by those in positions of power. And we visit Europe's most digitally connected neighbourhood to see why this accolade means more than just improved phone reception for its residents. Finally, before we go, we take a ride on Riyadh's new metro system. That's all ahead in the next 30 minutes here on The Urbanist with me, Andrew Tuck. A truly representative democracy means the widest possible range of voices is heard before decisions are made in a city. And for the information to be useful, be it from town hall meetings or online surveys, it needs to be brought together in one centralised space. Enter Go Vocal, a digital community engagement platform for local governments which allows cities to, engage with more voices and better manage their responses. I'm joined now by Go Vocal's CEO, Wietse van Ransbeek, to explain more about what this software can do and to share some examples of how cities have been embracing the digital world to improve outcomes. Wietse, thank you so much for joining me. Perhaps first of all, you can tell us more about those two words. What does Go Vocal stand for?
We are on a mission to improve the quality of public decision-making through digital participation. So more concretely, we help local governments make their decision-making more inclusive, more participatory and responsive. And we do that by providing a digital platform to those local governments that on the one hand, we give them the tools to engage. So think of your traditional surveys, think of collecting ideas, voting, discussions. But then on the other hand, we also provide them with the management system to give feedback to their residents, to close the loop and to analyze all that data, all that input that is coming in using artificial intelligence to make sense out of it. And today, our platform has been used by over 500 local governments from around the world. So both in Europe and in North America, by large cities and capitals such as Copenhagen, Vienna, Dublin, Vilnius, Oslo, as well as in the United States by Seattle, St. Louis, Kansas City, but also, of course, by way smaller municipalities and at other levels, national level as well.
Tell me, how does that work? You're a business? You see yourself as an agency? How does it work?
We're a business, but I should say a B Corp. We consider ourselves a social enterprise. We believe in business for good and the idea that you can both have a social mission and at the same time be an independent company. We work with local governments. They take a subscription to our software if you want. But there's one part which is the software, but on the other hand, there's obviously also a lot of change management, a lot of advisory services that we're offering them, which is definitely the bulk of the work we're doing.
So I'm a city, I come to you and I say, look, we're keen to know more from the people who put us here in power, from the citizens. Give us some help here. So you can provide a platform, a way of gathering in information. But then what kinds of things do people need to do to make sure that they're getting information from the right people and a diverse group of people? How do you train people to get this notion of digital democracy going?
First of all, I should say that these days, when you talk to a city or a council, often they already do lots of things. I think every city you talk to, they already have surveys in place. They might already organize events. So At this stage, what we're really helping them with is streamlining all of that and make it easier for residents to participate in local government without having to go on a Tuesday night necessarily to like a town hall meeting. So we help local governments bring all their participation in one single place. So really serving as a hub. But then we work with them to really blend those different approaches, have those different channels, both the workshops, the surveys, but also the dialogue features, and combine this all into one process. In one particular process, you have a combination of offline events, workshops, having the option to share your ideas online and vote on other ideas. So it's often really a mix of that all. And one particular thing that we help the cities with is provide way more transparency on how decisions are being made, because we have seen that that is one of the key factors in growing the trust from your communities, not only giving them the chance to have a say, but also making sure that they can have an influence and knowing how they've actually affected the decision-making process.
You mentioned a few cities earlier on, but can you give us one or two examples of places where best practice is in action already?
Let's just look at a couple of cities around the world, starting in the city of Copenhagen in Denmark, because they do something really interesting. They allow for participation really from the bottom up. Most of the participation that you will see is going to happen in projects that the cities are working on, a mobility plan, a climate action plan, etc. But what they do in Copenhagen is they say, hey, they call it the Copenhagen proposal, and they encourage people to come up with their proposals, their best ideas for the city without having to define in advance, like, hey, it's about this project or this domain. And by now they have over 15,000 participants in this agenda setting process. Yeah, the first proposals that have been accepted, and concretely how it works is once you have 2,500 votes, so think of previously like signatures that you would have to go collect from door to door. Once you have 2,500 votes, your proposal gets discussed by the council, and the politicians will actually decide, they commit to giving feedback to your proposal. And there have been a couple of success cases already. One is a proposal that was about securing a treatment guarantee for children and people who were raised in abusive homes. And that is something that they have already delivered. So that is just one example. But then in city of St. Louis, United States, they had the Rams, which is a local sports team that moved out of town. And they had to pay like a settlement fee of $250 million. And what the city of St. Louis did is they said, okay, $250 million, we are going to allocate this in a very participatory way. And they had over 15,000 residents participating in this participatory budget to allocate that budget to different priorities. And then maybe I'll just share a last one, a bit more from the south. In the city of Viña del Mar in Chile, they had last year those wildfires over there. So a large part of the city was actually, they got devastated. And they used our platform to redesign those public spaces. So they allowed, or they collected different ideas on the platform, then also, again, allocate a certain budget to it. And then the residents themselves, they could allocate those funds to the projects that have been developed out of those ideas. So those are just a couple of examples. What they really all have in common is it's about participating early on in processes in the decision-making in order to also grow the trust between the politicians, the government, and their constituents.
We also want to look at Vienna, which has been named European Capital of Democracy. How did that come about?
This award of European Capital of Democracy, it's a recognition that recognizes cities that do way more than, the must-haves of democracy when you think about constitutional order and free elections. It's about a reward or a recognition for cities that really go above and beyond, and that also really invest in discussion, in participation, in community. And that is where the city of Vienna really stands out. They also see that participation is about democracy. It's about decision-making, because often, participation can be seen as an afterthought, but they really take it seriously and they institutionalize participation into the way that they make decisions. They have a great cooperation model between policymakers, administration, and the community. And just in general, they really open up the politics, the administration's work to make things way more transparent. And they've been able to do that with thousands and thousands of residents on all of their projects. So that's a bit in a nutshell why they deserve this prize.
And what work has Go Vocal done with Vienna?
We are helping them with the digital side of things. And I'll just maybe share to start an example of something we've done. So there's many projects going on the platform, but one example that stands out is their Vienna climate plan. So they have been working on climate actions for 3 years already, with a budget of about 13 million euros per year. And on the platform, residents could submit their ideas for climate actions in the particular neighborhoods, which have then been developed on the platform into projects. And those projects then got evaluated by a citizen jury, a representative panel of citizens, to actually select those projects that needed investment. So that is one particular project. They had thousands and thousands of participants in this. So that is just one example. There are other examples of redesigning public spaces and so on. Maybe let me share a couple of examples of what are really, for us working with the city of Vienna, what makes them stand out as a city practicing democracy. So the first thing is, and that is something that is hard to observe from the outside, but what for us is really striking is what a strong internal culture of participation that they have. To give an example, they have established a dedicated office for participation, which is not, like your traditional fixed office, but it's a mobile workshop that takes the engagement team into the neighborhoods. So they rotate and they go from one neighborhood to the other, and they really go listen to the voices that are typically not heard. They have a particular focus on that, on making the unheard voices heard. So think of families with low income, think of people without the Austrian nationality who don't have the right to vote. So they really go into the neighborhood. So that is one particular thing. I also think it's worth noting that they have a democracy strategy, a dedicated democracy strategy. When you think about it, every city, I believe, should have a democracy strategy, but still it's very rare to see like that a city has a democracy strategy. But then beyond this office for participation, participation sits in all the different departments. And also when we work with them, for instance, giving a training or a workshop, there's typically like hundreds of civil servants showing up because they're eager to learn more about participation. So just in general, like there's a really strong culture of participation inside government. And secondly, they have a strong focus on inclusion and making everyone's voice heard. So I already mentioned the example of getting into the neighborhood and going after those underrepresented groups. But in addition to that, they do a fantastic job at building a model for hybrid participation. So there's the digital side, the online side, but there's also the offline side. Again, going back to that example of the climate actions, they have collected thousands of online ideas that have been then developed into projects, have been scrutinized. But then in the end, the decision-making is being done in a representative way, not by the administration or the government, but by a citizen jury, people who have been drawn by lottery, by sortition, to make sure that there is a representative body doing the decision-making. So I think those are some really impressive examples of really going above and beyond.
Wietse van Ransbeek there. Thank you for joining me on The Urbanist. A digitally connected neighbourhood means more than just ensuring your mobile phone has coverage throughout its streets. It can improve an area's mobility, bolster climate resilience, bring about social connection, and ensure a functioning democracy. The Brent Cross town development in London has recently made history as Europe's first neighbourhood to achieve both Wired Score and Smart Score neighbourhood certifications, indicating it possesses best-in-class digital connectivity. To find out more about the importance of this, Carlotta Rebello spoke with Morwena Hall, an executive director at Related Argent, the UK property developer who brought Brent Cross town to fruition. Carlotta began by asking Morwena to give listeners some context on the area of Brent Cross.
Brent Cross is in North London, and it very much embodies the rich sort of makeup and culture and diversity of wider London. One of the most diverse parts of London, black and ethnic minority communities, as well as Jewish and practicing Muslims. It's really well connected. It's at the base of the M1, so kind of the gateway into London, if you like, from the north. Also close to the North Circular, which is kind of almost like the ring road of London. And just over a year ago, actually had a new train station connecting into London, into King's Cross St Pancras, just in 12 minutes. Probably some other landmarks that people might know, very close to some green spaces, some suburb areas that people might know, like Hampstead Heath, but also Wembley, the National Football Stadium and Concert Arena. Brent Cross has a great community. There's a really strong sense of belonging there. Many people who live in Brent Cross have actually lived there for decades and actually through the generations.
Now, we wanted to talk to you about this new development, Brent Cross Town. It's this amazing 180-acre park town, essentially. Tell us a bit about the brief that you were given and the need to develop this specific part of Brent Cross Town.
The important thing about Brent Cross Town is we're actually developing it in partnership with Barnet Council. It was identified quite a while ago as an sort of area of opportunity. It was very underutilised, sort of industrial area that wasn't creating much job or home opportunity. To give a sense of scale, it's over the size of kind of 100 football pitches. So we have great plans with the council to regenerate this area. It should be over 6,700 homes, 3 million square foot of office, but really importantly, a huge amount of social infrastructure too. So we're re-providing 3 schools. We will have new health facilities, community facilities, alongside a really thriving new high street where we'll have food and amenities for people that live in the area. To help us with Brent Cross Town, kind of describe what we stand for and help our decision making along the way, we have 4 pledges. The first one is a place in London to participate in sport and play. And the word participate is hugely important to us. There are plenty of other places in London where you can go and watch sport, but actually participating, everything from just being active and walking through to challenger sports and team sports is really important. So we're going to have a mixture of facilities coming forward. The second is a place where all can flourish. And actually, we're trying to really put some science behind this. So we're working with the University of Manchester and Bureau Happold around creating a flourishing index. And this is a way to measure how communities and individuals are doing over the lifetime of the project. And that's using a variety of data that we collect through measuring things, but also talking to people. And that will help us understand how we're doing through the lifetime of the project, which will take 15 to 20 years, and will help guide our decisions as we go through. The third one is addressing the climate change emergency, and we are looking to become a net zero carbon town. And then finally, the fourth one is around strengthening connections of the physical connections which needed to be improved at Brent Cross Town. Also connections between communities. I've described there's quite a lot of different communities. We want to try and find ways to bring them together. But another really important aspect is actual digital connectivity, which is becoming more important, which is evidenced through our work that we've been doing to get our wide scored and smart score.
Which is a certification an accreditation that means this development is best in class for digital connectivity. Let's stay on that. I guess the first question is really, how do you go about achieving this?
Yeah, as you say, we made history last year by being Europe's first wide score and smart score neighbourhood. The neighbourhood bit's really actually important to us. We're working on a project of a huge scale, and wide score is looking at that on a district level. It's about being able to demonstrate that you have a strategy to deliver great digital connectivity, but also a real plan to execute and deliver. So we have works that we're doing at a master plan level, but also at a specific building level. And the way that we demonstrated that we met those credentials is that we have over 5 assets or buildings with over 3 use classes, so residential, office, retail, etc. And we have public space, and that allows us to demonstrate that we have something of a scale to be certified at a sort of neighbourhood level.
And that, of course, plays into the ambition here as well for this to be a net zero town, essentially.
Yes, and actually digital connectivity can help all of our pledges that I've described, but also definitely helps our net zero ambitions. There is so much that we can now do through digital activity and gathering knowledge and implementation that can actually help us deliver our net zero goals. That's not only at a building level, looking at energy and other things like that, but actually on a master plan level. So we have district energy network, which is fundamental to achieving net zero, because we can look at how we deploy our electricity and heat across the buildings and sort of waterbed, if you like, use. And also we have technology that can allow us to make the most of green energy coming in, but also generating ourselves.
Of course, we're talking here about a new development, but how difficult would it have been to implement such an ambitious digital connectivity project if you were talking about restructuring or rebuilding an existing area? Is this something that really only works if you're building anew?
Everything that we're doing, I think there are lessons that can be learnt for existing developments. We've been working on King's Cross for 20 years now, and we've had to make many changes over the lifetime of that project, and I think demonstrated that you can retrofit. I think the key lessons that we've learned, really, one of them is to make sure you keep as much direct control of the critical infrastructure as possible, so that over the lifetime of the project you actually have the ability to adapt and evolve. Open protocols is also hugely important. If you sign exclusivity with certain organisations and take a very niche path in terms of your digital infrastructure, it very much limits your ability to pivot in the future. We invest quite a lot of our own time as an organisation into trying to understand what the cutting edge movements are. So we have a dedicated team who are out constantly in the market trying to understand things. But also I hope that people see that we're very open about what we do, the wins that we have made, and therefore people can take those lessons and apply them themselves. I think another thing that is really important for organisations in terms of adapting and learning is actually supporting the people that work with you, supporting your supply chain. So we do a lot of work with our contractors and with our managing agents to help them introduce innovation into their businesses. So, for example, we run an annual competition where we provide funding to the winners to look at pilots and look at new opportunities to change their digital approach or their technology approach, and then we implement those on our projects where they're successful.
Around the world, more and more cities are not only using data to their advantage to streamline processes, to identify what needs changing, to connect better with existing communities. Do you find it that you still have a hard time having to explain why this sort of work is important, or is it getting easier?
I think it's not only getting easier, I think it's actually just a necessity. But I think people understand it's become a need for our customers. Our job, and especially in creating a flourishing town, is meeting the needs of people. And digital connectivity is now not on the wish list, it's on the required list. So we do everything we can to demonstrate that we have forward planned and thought about those needs, and that interactions for our customers are seamless. And when we get feedback that things aren't working well, we try and address them. An example from King's Cross, we received some feedback that it was quite hard to book restaurants at King's Cross because you had to go to individual websites to try and understand where you could get a table. So we listened to that, and actually we created a consolidated platform where people could go on and look at the availability of a range of restaurants at King's Cross and just be able to book a table straight away. Other things are looking at seamless connection to Wi-Fi throughout buildings and throughout public realm. All of these things we try and think about ahead of time, and then we can talk to our customers and try and explain how we're going to meet their needs.
What would be the number one lesson you would like other developers, other councils or boroughs looking at development that they could take back home with them to perhaps implement, not only in the UK, but beyond?
I think my number one is actually less of a technical thing. It's a mindset. I think the really important thing is to stay open-minded and to share. As a sort of organisation, sometimes it can be really tempting to have ideas and try and keep them to yourself. But we have many, many challenges in our industry. We've got a housing crisis, we've got climate change crisis, and actually we all need to come together to solve that. So I think my number one is we all need to try things. We all need to be open about our experiences, what's worked well and what hasn't, and share that with each other.
Morwenna Hall there, speaking with Carlotta Rebello. Finally today, we change lines to look at Riyadh's recently completed metro network, which opened in full last month. The project includes some 85 stations with architectural heavy hitters such as Zaha Hadid and Snow Hetta among those who have contributed station designs. Riyadh Art, the world's largest public art programme, has also helped transform some of the stations into cultural landmarks in themselves, with the installation of 4 monumental public artworks. Our contributor, Mandy Sinclair, sent us this report on the latest piece of the King Abdulaziz project to be realised.
When the Royal Commission for Riyadh City rolled out the Riyadh Metro project in the kingdom's capital on December 1st, with 5 lines launching and the 6th and final line beginning operation on January 5th, they didn't just unveil an impressive metro system, but the world's longest driverless transit system. The network spans 176 kilometers across 6 color-coded lines. Blue, red, purple, green, orange, and yellow zigzag their way through the city and 85 metro stations. The project is all part of the King Abdulaziz project for Riyadh public transport, and the system connects key districts, business centers, all airport terminals at the King Khalid International Airport, some 33 kilometers north of the city. The metro also makes a halt at cultural landmarks in Saudi Arabia's capital city, including the Saudi National Museum, the mixed-use pyramid-shaped Al Faisaliya Tower, Saudi Arabia's first skyscraper, and there's also a stop at the 41-story Kingdom Center, home of the 65-meter sky bridge at the top of the tower, as well as retail spaces and the Four Seasons Hotel. Other lines pass by key government ministry offices, universities, libraries, and hospitals, truly connecting the city from east to west and north to south. According to the government website, the metro system aims to alleviate traffic congestion, shorten travel, and improve quality of life for Riyadh's growing population. I had a chance to chat with Khalid Tuk, a national tour guide in Saudi Arabia who visits Riyadh regularly. He tells me about his experience opting for the metro over a taxi from the airport on a recent visit to the city center.
I had a mission. I was going there to start a tour with some guests coming to Riyadh. So I flew from Asir to Riyadh, and it was the first week they started the metro. I go to Riyadh many times, but when they announced that they started the metro, the first thing that I didn't use the regular transportation, which is taxi, when I arrived to Riyadh airport. I used the metro. It was very easy, very simple, and very cheap compared by what I used to have in the past.
And while the metro lines may pass by and stop by key cultural landmarks, two of the stations in particular are worthy of a visit. The futuristic curved Zaha Hadid architects designed King Abdullah Financial District Metro Station, or KAFD as it's noted on the transit map, takes its own pride of place between soaring skyscrapers. It's this station that caught my eye and left me intrigued when passing by the city's financial district prior to the metro system's launch. Khalid also echoed my sentiments.
The design there of that station, and Zaha Hadid is very famous of her way of architect designs. So it's attracted me since the start of the construction of the financial district there. It's one of the best. The design of the station, since they start building the whole area, I was looking forward to the station there. It's one of the amazing buildings that I see in Riyadh in general, but King Abdullah Financial Center is the best.
Easily recognizable as a Zaha Hadid architect's designed building with its rounded facade, I learned that the striking exterior resembles the repetitive patterns in the sand left behind by frequent desert winds. The 5-story station houses 6 rail platforms over 4 levels. In addition to the metro service, the station also serves as an important transit hub, providing bus connections. And with 2 additional levels below ground providing space for parking, KAFD is also a hub for park and ride services. As stated on the architecture firm's website, the metro station's design prioritizes connectivity, as 3 lines, the blue line, yellow line, and purple line, pass through the station. As such, predicted rail, car, and pedestrian traffic has been modeled, mapped, and structured to optimize internal circulation and avoid congestion. But this isn't the only notable station. Renowned architecture firm Snøhetta designed the Qasr Al Hokum downtown metro station in the city center. Though the station is not yet open to the public, the unmissable polished stainless steel canopy exterior rises over a pedestrian area, and it's from here that passengers will eventually gain access to the metro station. But it's more than just impressive architecture at these 2 stations. Riyadh Art, the world's largest public art program, has strategically placed 4 monumental public artworks to coincide with the metro's launch at both stations. Glistening outside of the Qasr Al Hokum downtown metro station is Ugo Rondinone's The Sun, fittingly symbolizing energy and renewal. Inside, and inspired by Riyadh's rich cultural heritage, Saudi artist Zaman Jassim's When the Moon is Full is also installed at the downtown station. Alongside the internationally acclaimed Zaha Hadid architect design station is the internationally recognized red and blue love structure by Robert Indiana. Inside is Alexander Calder's bold and colorful Janie Weenie kinetic sculpture, which adds an extra element of art and design to the already stunningly beautiful building. And though the metro service has just launched, Khalid was pleasantly surprised by the response to the service when he hopped aboard recently.
I didn't expect this big number of people gathering in or using the metro, but it was an experience to see it with my own eyes that most of especially the new generation, they start to use the metro because it's very easy for them. Such a project like a metro is a fantastic thing to do. For myself, I'm so proud to have something like this in Saudi Arabia.
My thanks there to Mandy Sinclair for that report. Well, that's all for this week's episode of The Urbanist. Remember that you can get new editions of the show every week. Just follow us through your favourite podcast provider. You can also subscribe to Monocle magazine for regular reports on all things design, architecture and urbanism. Just visit monocle.com. This episode of The Urbanist was produced by Carlotta Rebello and by David Stevens, who also edits the show. I'm Andrew Tuck. Goodbye, and thank you for listening, City Lovers.